Welcome everybody to our next session on medical tourism and telemedicine. Uh, as I forgot to introduce myself before, I will do so now. I'm your moderator for the second day of the Gulf Medical Tourism online conference. My name is Fadi El-Khouri, and I'm the head of consulting at the Middle East Service Center, International Patient Service from Germany. Just to give you a few insights on our company and also myself, we have 40 years of experience in the field of medical tourism. I myself was born into this business. It's a family-owned company here based in Germany. And over our time, we successfully facilitated medical treatment for 52,000 patients all towards Germany. And as somebody who was young when he got involved with the industry, I always thought about how to improve the industry for all stakeholders, patients, hospitals, and facilitators. And I started offering consultancies to hospitals because we collected the entire knowledge of this company and are now providing it to healthcare providers, facilitators, and startups. I will skip these slides on the company. I prefer to get right into the topics. Just a few ideas on the way we work. Usually we start with an audit. We really look at a facility, whatever it is. If it's a healthcare company, we look at them, we see how they operate and how they work. And you will see this in my slides on the topic of telemedicine and medical tourism, how this approach actually then provides value to all the participants. So we do many things, project development, stakeholder analyses, but I think this is the thing that interests most of you. This is something we hear quite often in the field of medical tourism. Recently, that telemedicine will bring the end of medical tourism, that it basically will make medical tourism useless. There won't be a need for the patient to travel because all his questions are going to be answered beforehand. And I myself find myself largely disagreeing with this notion. I will just start by the types of telemedicine. There's three categories of telemedicine as we usually refer to them. We have store and forward, which everybody is doing right now already. It's not even the bread and butter, it's the water of medical tourism, and telemedicine is just saving a file and forwarding it to the provider or to the patient. Very simple, but it's also telemedicine. The status of it currently, it's in full implementation when it comes to medical tourism, so everybody is mostly using it. Priority is number one because it's what's necessary to conduct a second opinion for the patient. And the issues with implementation that we still see is data privacy concerns, interoperability, and defined sets of data, what's actually required to evaluate. Now, when it comes to real-time interactive services, excuse me, RTIS, it's ad hoc consultations or second medical opinions. It's partially implemented, so it's the patient talking to the doctor through his mobile phone, telephone itself, or via app or computer. Priority is number two. It is important, but it is not yet as important just due to the implementation as it is to store files and forward them to give the full idea of the medical condition the patient has. The issues are, it's not yet correctly implemented. People don't know at what time in the value chain of the patient it should be actually implemented. There's an issue with feasibility of implementations. If processes aren't designed smoothly, what will happen at the end of the day is more work for all parties concerned, also the patient. And there's issues with design and choice overload, and a regulatory issue when it comes to medical professional licensing. So would you be practicing without a license as an MD if you are providing telemedicine services to somebody outside of your jurisdiction? And this has not yet been decided, and the solution is something I think the stakeholders wish it is here now, but it's not. It's something that governments have to define between each other. And there's remote monitoring, especially important in follow-up treatment. Status, early stages, some professionals are already using it to provide better service to their patients, but we have not yet really seen grand implementations in the area of medical tourism. The priority is such level as a 3, just by virtue of the fact that it's important that the patient gets treated, and then we can think about the follow-up. But I think in the future, we will see all of these combined and implemented. And I think most of us are actually looking forward to it, and those who don't, because they fear it is going to bring a dent or to damage the market of medical tourism, I hope I can convince you that this is not what actually happens. Number one, there's the fear that medical tourism, telemedicine will lead to less patient visits in medical tourism. I have a few numbers from our internal files and also our hospital partners around the globe, not only in Germany, but also in the Middle East and the US. 7 out of 10 patients state they decided against visiting a prospective hospitality due to uncertainty. Putting ourselves in the position of a medical traveler, it's very important to remember always. For us, it's a given for industry professionals, but we tend to forget it. The medical traveler goes on a journey. He leaves his country, he leaves the language and the culture he knows. He often leaves family behind to be treated in a completely different jurisdiction, culture, and surrounded by different language. And what you usually see is an information deficit. So the patient is not fully informed what is going to await him once he decides to travel. And this information deficit, because we have so many things the patient should know, but often they are not communicated correctly, leads to uncertainty. Uncertainty most definitely leads to fear, and fear leads to what we refer to as the bounce off, the patient deciding not to travel. Number one cause for this uncertainty is indeed the lack of information, as just explained. And when you implement telemedicine correctly, offering the tool to speak to the medical professional before traveling, you have an increase in information because the patient is far more comfortable in asking questions to an MD. This will result in assurance, which then adds to security and translates into more visits. So it's not like the patient getting his answer through telemedicine. He's not going to travel. If he confines in the medical profession, he is most definitely coming and going to visit the hospital or the medical practice of this professional. And this is very important. Again, even if a patient decides not to come, and I will go more into detail about this later, at the end of the day, you have still gained one more client. And how this usually is shown, I will go into in a few slides. So, takeaway number one, telemedicine can equalize the inherent information asymmetry present in the medical tourism and thus leads to patient visits. And this is very important. There is information asymmetry. The doctor usually knows all, the patient usually knows next to nothing. And Dr. Reda has spoken about this, about empowering the patient. And one important tool to empowering him and make him an expert is providing him with the information, in best case, from the person who's going to be treating him. Cost savings for patient and providers. I think this is very important to remember how this can translate into a successful medical practice and benefit the patient. So number one, unnecessary travel burdens the patients and strains the medical provider system. If a patient arrives and you see, well, we can actually not do anything for him, it is just a burden on the hospital, and charging fees for the examinations conducted if they have been necessary is also an ethical consideration, which I would urge hospitals and providers not to do. So it leads to cost savings, because if you are practicing after a certain code of ethics, you will not charge the patient for these examinations. A short-term reduction in visits will lead to a long-term trust and relationship. And you can see on the right-hand side, by avoiding undue visits, what happens is that you gain the patient's confidence. You are showing him live, and you are telling him, actually, you don't have to travel. You don't have to embark on this journey. You don't have to spend large amounts of money just to come here, because we can give you the answer already. You should first conduct examination A, B, and C, or there is a facility in your area that can cover you perfectly. If the patient still wishes to come, for sure, you should welcome him. But by showing him that you are actually not thinking only about getting him into the country quickly, doing the examinations, doing the treatment, and sending him back, this will, at the end of the day, translate into a long-term benefit for your healthcare practice, because the patient has a relationship of trust to you and to your medical providers. So takeaway number two, putting the patient's interest first might diminish short-term results, but translate into a long-term beneficial relationship. And I can speak out of our personal experience. In 40 years, we are now treating patients, especially from the Middle East, from the GCC, but also from the CIS and the third generation. So there is patients whose grandfather was here, whose father and mother came to us, and also their sons know themselves they are coming here for treatment, because there's a relationship of trust towards the medical professionals, but also us, who in that time functioned as a medical facilitator, because they know we are not trying to bring them here, and we also have certain mechanisms to prevent medical professionals doing so if they intend to do it.